see.
Let me know when we're live.
All right. Next. All right. It is loading now, so we should be almost there.
I'm gonna try to have my phone out to see if I can double look.
All right. We should be live. I'm going to double check it on my end while you're talking, but
awesome.
looks
So
like
hopefully we're live on Facebook. Hopefully. But I just wanted to introduce myself really quick. I'm Jackie Johnson, and today's class or webinar is about getting your business in order and maximizing productivity. I know that a lot of people are like, well, we're already running at different capacities with COVID, but today will be interesting, and I'm going to stretch your way of thinking of how you can maximize your productivity in COVID, and then start thinking about when COVID craziness is over, how you can have a good solid team and build from there. So we'll wait a couple minutes to make sure everybody is coming in. And you guys can always unmute yourselves as well and say some highs and hellos. How are you, Terry?
Good. How are you?
Excited.
Excited.
Oh,
how did Lindsay find you is what I want to know. How did Lindsay find you?
Isn't she awesome?
Walking down the street.
Fantastic.
Walking down the street of Idaho Springs.
I mean, we knew each other before that, but I kind of cornered her.
Well, lucky for us.
Well, I'm glad that you enjoy it. That makes me feel good. I'm always thinking, I'm like, it may be a bit much for people, but
no, it's perfect. It's perfect. Everything you say, I'm just like furiously writing everything down, trying to get all these pearls of wisdom and trying to collect all this information. And then I'm like, she does branding. I wonder if I could talk to you on the side maybe too. So we'll
you always can. You always can. I'm going to actually drop in the chat right now a file. And this is just a file that is like my ebook. This is like the main ebook that I give all of my clients. It's called How Is Your Business Running? So you should be able to see it. And
yes.
Okay, so I just love this ebook, and it's not my whole brain, but it's just how I view business. And I mean, so people really kind of know how that stuff works and how my mind is thinking. So let me make sure I can see myself. Okay. So again, I guess I can wait like a few more seconds. I'll give people 3 minutes because I don't.
Lindsay's talking to God, so give her a minute.
I know. I made it just me, and I just looked up and she's like
leaning over my computer. Like, send me the Zoom link.
Okay.
Well, if you're talking to God too, that's okay. You know, I just don't want to interrupt.
It was like staring off into space, and it had like that aura of something great was happening. So I'm going to get started. And so if people miss some, remember, you can always catch the replay. This is going to be on the CCEDC website. It's also going to be evergreen on Facebook. And you can always reach out to me directly at Wildling Dreams, and I'll make sure you get connected and get everything emailed. But the file I just dropped was How Is Your Business Running? And 3 things that, you should know about the operations in your business. Right now with COVID, a lot of people are changing, they're downsizing, they're staffing. Some of them are just like, I don't know if I can stay open. So all of these things I'm going to touch on today, even as a new entrepreneur, existing entrepreneur, and then also someone trying to expand their business. Because during COVID, believe it or not, some people are launching their businesses for the first time, and some people are expanding into just diversifying on a whole new level. So, see if I can get this going. So, I am Jackie Johnson. I'm a business strategist. My background is from pharmaceuticals to hospitality to fitness. I have just about worked in every single background for over 16 years as, senior level management. I've also worked with startups to, like I said, the corporate world. And this is actually my favorite topic to talk about. That's why I'm like super excited, more than usual, is because I love analyzing businesses, finding solutions, and giving people strategies to make these things happen. That is my absolute passion to do. So I'm going to give a little example of this. So when I worked at Walgreens, you know, big pharma, you know, I worked there, and at a young age, I just realized that I could go into a store and just figure things out. And I'm talking about like 20 years old. I could go in, I could tell people how their customer service was. I could tell who was trained. Could tell who needed to be trained more. I could tell who was going to be on the fast track to promotions. I could see where their inventory levels were at, how fast someone was working. I just am very good at that rapid data. So I went to OU and got a degree kind of with the quality initiatives and research. So really giving me the more of the tools for this. So please ask me questions. I do not want anyone to feel like, oh, I don't want to ask any questions. I think that would be dumb. Please ask me, because this is something that I could help someone in their business fully overhaul or create better productivity. So just wanted to put that out there. So my first slide I have on here is, think of where your business is now. So just think, if you're a starter entrepreneur, you're like, it's nowhere. It's just all in my head. I don't know what I'm doing, you know, but think if you're an existing business owner, you may be saying, I'm in the COVID crazy. I don't know what to do. I just had to let some people go. I have people that I've laid off, or I don't know where to get, you know, quality materials. And that may be where you are now. Now think about where you want to be. Starter entrepreneur, you may say, I want to get to a solid $5,000 a month. Some people may say, I'm just trying to make, you know, cover my expenses. You know, where do I want to be in 3 months, 6 months, and a year? For an existing business owner, this may look like, I just want to return back to my normal wages. Like, I just want to make sure everybody's making their normal wages, everybody has their normal hours, and I'm getting consistent customers coming in. And then now think about what you need to do. And when I usually ask this question to clients, they're like, I don't know what I need to do. Like, that's the first thing that they respond. They're like, I don't know. I don't know where to start. I feel like I'm drowning. And that is why I'm doing this class, is really talking about, what do you need to do? Because that's where people get stuck the most. And if you stay there too long, you get discouraged, and then you could be losing, you know, profitability in the process. So there is that. So analysis of your business. What does that even mean? People just say, well, finances, I just got to know the financial part of the business. I got to make sure I have people here to sell my products. I got to make sure I have enough inventory. And that's usually where, when I talk to a client, they're really stuck on, my labor's not right. And they're just like, my labor's not right. I got to cut labor. I got to cut labor. I got to cut labor. Or, oh my gosh, I don't have a vendor, you know, or I don't have enough employees. So those are the three things that I hear the most. But that is very linear in thinking. It's not really in depth. So I'm going to try to stretch your imagination. So get your thinking cap on, because some of these things I may bring up, you may not even think about as a new entrepreneur in business. And then even people that have been in business 2, 3, 25 years even, really don't think about it this way. So be sure to take notes and really listen to what I'm saying going forward. So when I think about an analysis of the business, I am looking at, what are your strengths? That's where I always start, because people want to talk about, this is what I want to do, and this is great, and they get all excited. But I'm like, okay, but what are you doing now? Right now, what are you doing that is fully great, fully exciting, and you know you do it well? So think about that in your business, and I'll probably pause for a couple seconds. So write down, what are your strengths? So if you're a solo entrepreneur and you're the only employee, write down what you do well. people that have said, oh, you're really good at connecting to people, you're really good at speaking, your product is really great. Write that down. So if you're on here and you're a manager, think about the feedback that you get from customers. Think about the feedback you get from employees. Think about what you get from your employer or the owner. Think about what your strengths really are. And then for an established business that may have multiple franchises, just start thinking about each location, what makes you strong, and what you're known for. So on the strengths, this can vary on what this is, but the strengths, I even think of, like, if you're a restaurant, is your floor plan just so open and inviting that people love it? Is your finances just on key? You got cash flow, you got cash to use, you have a good line of credit, you're getting a good amount of clientele come in, so your finances are solid. Even with COVID, you may be like, man, I'm still sitting at a good place because I was able to get some grant funding, some loan funding. Your strengths could be your location. Your location could be spot on where you get tons of traffic. You're like, I'm on a corner lot. I have the biggest sign. Everybody stops here. Everyone parks. I have great parking. And then you may be a person that has SOPs, like your whole, like you have a strategy for everything. Everybody knows what to do. If something crazy happens, you have an SOP ready, like boom, here it is. You may be saying your strengths are customer service. So you may say that my customer service is spot on. I have the most bubbly host that to seat people. Or you may say I have the best customer service myself. I answer all my calls, but I make sure I answer everybody same day or within 24 hours. You also may have an assistant that you're like, my customer service is so great because I don't do it at all. You're like, I may just have someone that I'm paying to do that. Your training, the training may be just straight spot on in your business. You're like, everybody's trained, everybody knows what to do, so I'm still able to take vacations and things like that. And so on and so forth. Like your color scheme, you may feel like it catches people's attention. You have a variety of products and services. Your employees are great. You have enough employees. You have good communication with your team. Then you have good ownership. So some people may have investors, or you may be on here as a manager. You may just say, our ownership is stellar, so I feel like I can connect with everyone. You may just say, we have the cleanest place on the block. Right now with the COVID, everybody's worried about if something is clean, if it's nice, if, you know, how we're attracting people. So, and then if you're looking at my menu, like if you're a restaurant or even a coffee house, like I have the best menu. People come in and I know exactly what they're coming in for because everybody's drinking the same espresso. Everybody's eating the same muffin. We have the best ingredients. So I broke this down and I elaborated on a lot because most business owners or even management team, they're just like, we're open, we're good, we're making money. But you need to know your strengths. You need to know everything, the ins and outs of your business down to this kind of science. Not just we're open, we're making money, or we're open and not making money. So when I go into a business, I'm looking at, these are just a handful. I know it looks like a dozen things. This is a handful of the things that I look at when I look at a business. I am trying to figure out all of these things. I eat there, I sit down, I talk to employees. If it's a place that's a chiropractor office, I'm coming in and I'm literally looking, is the glass behind me clean? Is the waiting room inviting? Is it dark in color? Oh my gosh, like I go in the bathroom, I can see a cleaning thing, seeing who cleaned. If I'm in the bathroom a long time, I'm all like, did I have cleaning supplies in here? I'm a nerd. I am looking at every single part of the business. But unfortunately, the strengths of our business can also be the weaknesses in some people's businesses. So the only thing that changed on this slide is the strengths to weaknesses. I've walked into businesses and they had the worst floor plan. Like I'm literally tripping over chairs to get in because it's not even wheelchair accessible. I've looked at people when I asked them for their finances or anything like that. And I don't mind old school paper because I'm old school. I like paper, but they're like pulling out papers and they're all like confused. You're like, wait, I think I got that. And they're like digging and off boxes off the floor. definitely not good things for your business. Some people have locations that it's not that it's necessarily like off the street, which could still have, you know, good traffic, but you could also be in a dark corner with not bad with bad lighting. I look at things like that, and I talk to just business owners in general or entrepreneurs. I'm like, if this happened, do you have a strategy to fix that, or some way you could hand someone a piece of paper and delegate it, like an SOP, a standard operation procedures, or anything like that? And when I talk to owners and or management team and they don't have any backup plan or way to educate someone on what to do, that is a huge red flag. I always say customer service is king. I know that sounds like a silly thing to say, but I've went into places that, I mean, they had horrible menus, but that hostess was like extra horrible. Like, I go in there and I'm like, oh man, like, hey, you can sit here. Yeah, sit wherever you like. She's like half busting down the table, knocking crumbs on the floor, seeming like they don't want to be there. The people that won't give eye contact, people that don't have a good variety. Like I've been in restaurants and it's so crazy. I've sat in restaurants that everyone was like, hey, do you have this or do you have this? And they're like, no.
She's frozen. Oh, no, she's frozen.
Yeah, Jackie's frozen. Jackie, come back. Come back. We're hanging on your every word. Come back.
Going on.
Oh, you froze for a sec.
You froze on
us. I froze. Oh, where did you hear? So I just
20 seconds maybe.
Oh yeah. My Lord. I was like, man, I don't see anyone. What is happening? Oh no. Sorry, I'm gonna rewind. So on weaknesses, I talked about just customer service. Did you hear me? Customer service is king. Okay. So customer service is king. And I think for the most part, some people are just really not with it on the customer service. Even right now in COVID, that is exceptionally important that you have customer service, even with less employees. I know that a lot of people are stressed because they're like, I don't have enough employees. I've had to lay off, 30% of my staff. Some of my clients have actually had to let go 60% of their staff. And they're like, we have a strategy to get them back as their numbers come back. But like all of the things that I said about strengths could also be weaknesses in your business. So you need to be aware of that. So nobody goes in their business and has 100% greatness. I hear that all the time. They're like, oh, my business is going so great and everything's great. And I'm like, everybody's business has room to expand, diversify, and grow. That's just the way it is. So don't ever feel bad when I'm, if I work with clients and they're like, man, you just told me a whole bunch. Like I feel like I'm failing. And I'm like, no, you paid me to give you analysis of your business so you can grow and diversify. I would not be doing you justice if I just gave you a little list and not giving you fully what you paid for. So there is that. I'm going to go to the next slide. So this is the main thing that I see in businesses is lacking organization. It's like they have an organization, a store, they're an entrepreneur, they're a doctor, but the organization is always what it is, or they're really proficient in a few areas and they're like, but I have no idea what to do in this other area. And that is totally normal. It happens at Walgreens, y'all. It happens at CVS. It happens at JCPenney's. It happens at, doctor's offices that, that they're like, I'm the doctor. I don't know what my front desk is doing. I own the practice. I have no idea. I was just at my kid's pediatrician's office. And I love the doctor. I'm not gonna say his name, but I love this guy. But he's so honest. He's like, I don't know how that portal works. He's like, or I'll tell him that, hey, I messaged you in the portal. And he's like, I don't know how to open that. And then he'll be like, hold on a second. And then his assistant will come in and open up the portal. He fully knows his strengths. He's the doctor. He's not going to open up the portal. But then he was like, well, now I know. And that was a great way to look at it. He's like, I got an organization set up that I don't have to know how to do everything. I have delegated it, out. And I just love when she comes in with her mask and gloves, because you can tell she's like a techie. And she's like, all right, I'm going to open this up for him and then show him how to use it. But to me, that shows a sign of strength. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, I need to get my organization together. Well, even in my organization, I'm taking on team members, which means I have to change some things and grow. So I'm going to switch my screen. So bear with me here. So I am switching to the document here. So this document is the one I dropped in the chat. And if people are on Facebook, we'll make sure you can get it on the CCEDC website. And I'm just going to scroll through and talk about it. So on labor, when I go in, I was like, how much are you spending in labor on an average week? People usually say a month or in the busy time. I just ask on an average week, which most people are not used to being. And they'll say, it's 20%, it's 50% because somebody was on sick leave or someone's on maternity leave. And still right now with COVID, I still ask people, do you need to hire? And a lot of them are like, yeah, I do need to hire because someone just had to get another job and they're working at 2 different places. So this is a working workbook. I want you to write this down. Do you need to hire? Are you overstaffed? People are like, well, how are you going to be overstaffed in COVID? But people still are because they're just like, well, if that person calls out or if that person gets COVID, I need to have that covered. And then I have a question just even for like the business owners, like how much is your quarterly taxes on average? And I just asked that just randomly. A lot of them don't know. I'm just being honest. They don't know. They're like, oh, let me ask my bookkeeper. But I usually ask that question to kind of stretch their thinking so they can keep it on their radar. I'm not asking for, it's $492.62. Like, but if they know it, great. But I just have that kind of seeds of the mind just to make sure people are opening up their mind. And on here. So this is a big vendor invoicing. Are you overspending? Most people are like, no, I just got it. They have to be the best price. They're the only people that are coming here. But I say, are you overspending? And do you need a new vendor? Do you need a new one? Most people do not shop around, especially right now with COVID. It is getting very competitive and people are actually getting more competitive with their prices. So even if you're an entrepreneur and you're like, all I'm doing, say you have a cleaning company, you're like, I'm just doing laundry. Why do I need to shop around? This may be the time that you can maximize your dollars by shopping around. Someone may say, hey, I'm able to turn this around faster and cheaper, or at least be faster and more reliable. So these things that can make you more productive in the long run. And then I ask people, are you underspending? And people are like, well, it's the cheapest. And I'm like, yeah, but are they coming on time? If they're supposed to be here at 10 and they're coming a.m. and they're coming at 2 p.m., like, well, yeah, they're cheap, but that doesn't help you. Same thing with vendors on entrepreneur. You may have a digital graphics person. I'm just going to say, so you need business cards and you need some leaflets. I'm just going to say some leaflets. And then people say, oh, well, it's my vendor, but I'm on his timeline. He said he would get it to me in 2 weeks, but now I have to push back something because he got it to me in four weeks. Hold these people accountable. And if they're not staying to a deadline that they set when you signed the contract or gave them money, I would say hold their feet to the fire. I know that sounds like a mean thing to say, but you want to make sure that they're held accountable for that, because you don't want to be losing money waiting for that tangible item, whatever that is. That could be lettuce to business cards. You may be needing that ebook created, like my ebook, because you're doing a class. You need to make sure that you're thinking about these things. And this is stuff that people say, well, I have a vendor, thank God. And for me, I'm asking these 4 questions. Are you getting poor quality? Are you overspending? Are you underspending? Have you shopped around? And then the next question I ask is like, what are your peak hours? Which a lot of times now people are having to change their hours set on what, the demand is. So they may not be open, Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday. They may say, well, I'm closed these 2 days because that does not, there's no peak hours. So you need to clearly define what those times are. And that can help you with scheduling, but it can also help you on making sure that you are open at the right times. Because I've seen a lot of businesses, like I have some businesses down in Denver, I have some in other countries, other states, and I'm like, okay, she's like, we're open 8 to 5. And I'm like, okay, when's your first customer come in? She's like, 11 o'clock. And I'm like, okay, so you're paying someone from 8 to there, but do you need to be open? She's like, well, I just want to be there. I just want to be there if someone comes. And I'm like, well, great. Why don't you just slap something on the door saying if you need an appointment, call or text this number, but you don't physically need to pay someone $18 an hour just for the hopes of someone being there. I mean, that $18 an hour times 3, times 6 days a week, times, and I'm like, so 6 times 4. And she's like, oh my gosh. Like, then she was freaking out because she's like, oh my gosh. Like, so people knowing their peak hours, you can track that sometimes by sales or by physical bodies. And if you're an entrepreneur, that's like a doctor's office, you can see on your ledger when people are coming. Or if you're doing Zoom meetings, you can see when people are booking. So if you see people are not booking during those hours, if you're a Zoompreneur, that's what I'm calling it now, a Zoompreneur. If you're a Zoompreneur, block out your schedule. Have a life. It is okay. Like, it is okay to block out your schedule in that regard. So, and on there, it's like, what are your top offers and services? A lot of people have a lot of services. A lot of the restaurants, I've said, you got to tailor down that menu. That really isn't working. For the doctor's offices, they were offering a bunch of like classes and this and that and this and that. And I'm like, you can't really do that anymore because you don't have the time. You don't have the time. Or if people aren't showing up and you're putting a lot of marketing and dollars in that, you need to know that. So on this, I want people to kind of look at what are their top offers and services. And I think I had a taper. Do you make off of it? Yeah, and how much do you make off of those services? So if it's a physical, I'm going to say a soup, how much those ingredients cost you? You know what I mean? And then how much are you selling it for? So know that. If you're a person, you're a personal trainer, it's like, okay, you're like, well, it only cost me as meat. But I'm like, are you renting a space? How much is that costing you? If you're a Zoompreneur, you're like, it costs me electricity because I just throw on a nicer shirt and sit down. But all of those things need to be not in your head, but on a physical piece of paper so you can hand it over to a person like me that's a business strategist, or so you can physically know. I know everybody wants to have everything in their head. It's just impossible. It has to be put to paper. So standard operating procedures. So your SOPs. I have people like, how are your employees doing? And the amount of deer in the headlights, they're like, what do you mean? They're here. Like, how are your employees doing? And they're just like, they clocked in. What do you mean? What are they doing? Like, how are they doing? And I'm like, how are they doing? How are they good about clocking in, clocking out? Are they taking their breaks on time? Are they taking lunch at all? Because we need to be encouraging that. And then it's like, okay, are they asking for extra hours? Are they asking for more hours? And then I always ask people to list their employees. And I like it when it's franchises because they're like, I don't know. So they're like having like their management team fill it out. Or they're like, I think somebody got hired. Her name is Susie. And we kind of laugh about that because it's like, well, you must really be doing well. You don't even know everybody that works there. But then in a way, listing your employees, it's not just a payroll check. For if you're an employer, owner or investor. You're actually a little bit more intimate. So I ask people about listing their employees and how they're doing, what positions they're in. Because some people are like, I don't really know what position she's in. I hired her because we're super slow, so she's kind of a floater, and write that down as well. If you're an entrepreneur and you don't have any employees, I mean, I just tell people, hey, if you wanted some employees, what do you want to hire them for? That could be marketing, copyright, advertising. It could be, you're like, I just don't like typing my own email, so I need someone to do the copy. You can tailor that if you're a newer entrepreneur. And I'm always like, high five for team. I know I'm corny. I'm like, high five. But I want people to have like an understanding of everybody that's on their team. So the next thing, are your employees trained? And I get a lot of people, yeah, they're trained, they work here. And I'm like, are they really trained? And they're like, I don't really know. Like, and that's that about level of honesty. And so I tell them, write down your employees' names. And you, if you're the owner, investor, you may not be able to do this, but your manager, have them look around and be like, what does this person do all the time? And then if you start seeing, well, this is what I actually need them to do, then you need to write that down. Susie Q is always working the cashier. She's a great cashier, but I actually need Susie Q to fill the grab and go. Oh, this person is always here to prep or whatever, but I also need that person when they're done prepping to wash their hands and make sure the bathroom's clean. So that is a different way of thinking about it. And then you could have a manager. I always get on managers. I used to be a manager, and I used to be like, oh, I'm a manager. And I would have to be like, okay, how's my employee doing today? Did they do what I told them to do? And then I would also ask myself, am I capable of doing the task I'm assigning them? And I know that sounds really funny to say. And I laugh because I used to go to some stores and I was like, I don't think I know how to do that. Like, I was like, did you do those 6-ups? Did you do that inventory? Do you know how to use that system? And she's like, yeah, I do. And she did it. And then I thought about it. I was like, ooh, do I know how to use that new system effectively if somebody asked me? So I always use this as a check and balancing for owners and management as well. Do not ask people to do stuff that you're not capable of doing or you don't straight up know how to do. You should know a working way of it, because employees will also become bitter. That's just a total, because they'll be like, did she just ask me to do that? She doesn't even know how to do it themselves. Like, and I've been guilty, so I'm putting my hands up. So on employee training, I think of all of those things. And if you don't have employees, think about, if I had an employee, what would I need to train them to do so I can get some days off, or so I can do other things in my business that only I can do. And then on that, do they have everything they need to do their job? I mean, it's really interesting because people are saying, well, they work here. And I'm like, yeah, but if they need pens, sticky notes, if you have them doing a task and the software doesn't work, the internet doesn't work, how do you navigate that as well? And then I always ask people, how's the work environment? Are people smiling? Are they mad? Are people calling in? All of that stuff is about doing analysis on the business. So I'm going to pause here because I know it just says, are you responsible for the employee's failure? But if you guys have any questions about your business or businesses that you see, I don't know, Lindsay, if you've gotten any questions about from other people that weren't able to be on the live or on the call. Or Dr. Terry, do you have any questions about what I've covered so far? I'm calling people out. I know it's like school. It's like you over there.
That's okay. I can take it. I don't think I have any questions. I am a solo entrepreneur right now. And so I just opened this clinic in February, and I was employed last year. So it is new, and I do not have any employees right now. I did have an office gal for just a couple of weeks, but then I had to let her go because I couldn't pay her salary because I couldn't pay my own salary. So I think it's just kind of an unusual year, but I think this is all really good exercise for me to be thinking about, you know, what is it that I need when I do hire people. And I don't have like a handbook or any kind of manual yet. I've kept some from previous employers and previous places I've worked at just to have as a reference. But I think having like the standard operating procedures in place before I hire someone would be a really, really good idea, because who knows what could happen, you know? What if the office floods? You know, what if, you know, that crazy thing, what if
It
an alarm,
happened.
you know? So I think it's really good for me to do this exercise. And I was just printing off your workbook, but I ran out of paper. So I'm just going to turn around and put some more paper in my printer.
No worries, no worries. But I'm gonna keep talking so you can catch this on the replay if you're getting your printer stuff. But
Okay.
no, that is so great that you're thinking about it this way, because this is a foundation you can set in your business, because you're in a business to make sales and to ultimately grow. You don't have to be proficient in it and know all the ins and outs, but having it on your radar is the first step. That's why I tell people there's no judgment. If there's people that have been in business for 2 days or 25 years, they're like, but I never was asked those questions. Then when I have a business degree, they didn't talk about all this. They were just like, do this, your labor, this, make sure it's clean, OSHA regulations, labor laws, W-2s, I-9s, W-4, like, they were just like, make sure you do this, don't do that, or you'll get sued. It wasn't really about how to manage people and equip them really to succeed. It was like, train them. Well, how do you train an employee? You know, and that's why, like, are you responsible for your employee's failure? And people are like, well, failure is just such a strong word to say. I'm like, but if you're telling them to do a task of cleaning and you don't have cleaning supplies, and you're saying the bathrooms have cleaned, because I just had this with the client, and I went in, I'm like, you have cleaning supplies, but you probably should have some more. like, yeah, you have basic stuff, but I'm like, you know, bleach and Lysol, you need to have that stocked up. Like, you need to have, yes, you have enough cleaning towels for today, but you need to have enough for 2 or 3 days just in case. And then I always get, that employee never is doing this. They never are doing that. They're never doing this. And I'm very direct. I just say, oh, well, why aren't you doing that? And they're like, what is that? Like, what is that task? And you can tell when people are, you know, joshing you, and you can tell when people are genuinely like, what do you mean? Oh, the computer does that? The software does that? Oh, well, I've been doing it on paper. And then they pull out some paper. So some of it is just filling in the gaps, you know, really filling in the gaps. So all of this stuff is just from, like I said, all of the industries. These are overlapping things that can set you up to succeed or set you up to fail. And if you're spending money on employees that aren't properly trained and they're not doing the job, you're probably spending 3 to 5% more on an employee that's not sufficiently doing their job. And you're throwing money, and you might as well just throw it down the toilet and just flush it, because and most people, I know people try to say employees are lazy and dumb. I had one of my older clients that said that, and I'm like, people usually want to keep their job. Like, they usually want to put their best foot forward. So this isn't about being lazy or dumb. This is about, are they equipped? Are we communicating in a manner that they understand? Are they visual? Are they needing auditory? Are they needing both? They need to touch it, STEM, like they need that kinetic thing. And all of that is about training employees. And then also knowing, which is that knowing when to fire someone. You know, there's a difference of like layoffs with COVID, but sometimes you really do have a poor employee. This employee is not showing up on time. This employee isn't doing what they need to do. You've trained them, and you are 100% sure they're trained. You're 100% sure they are fully equipped to succeed, and they're making a choice to do that. So I always have people fill that out. Hopefully they don't need all 10 lines, good Lord. But I always tell people, after you went through this and you put them on, do you need to fire someone list? go back through and make sure they've gotten retrained, you've given them chances, and you really have put all of those resources in there. And if you go back 2 weeks, even 3 weeks after, hopefully not even 3 weeks, and you see during the pay period that you still are having those consistent issues, know it's okay to fire that person. I use the word fire, and I also say when people are not doing their jobs properly, they let themselves go. You know, they're not doing the task. It's not that you're trying to be mean, but you need productivity and you need to maximize that, or your business cannot flourish. As an owner, you're throwing money in the toilet. As a manager, you're increasingly frustrated because Susie Q is not doing her job. And then as an employee, no one wants to work with an employee that is getting paid the same as them, if not even more, that's not doing their job. It can create a poor work environment. So it is okay to let people go, or let them let themselves go. You know, which I say most often, and that's okay. And I think as a business owner, people are just like, I just don't want to get fired. I just don't want to get, you know, unemployment down my throat, and I don't want to have to pay that. And all I can say for that is document, document, document. 3 write-ups, a termination, having an SOP saying, if you don't do this, we're going to retrain you. And if we come back, we're going to have to let you go. If you have that in writing, it's very hard for unemployment to put it on you. So say someone's habitually late. They're just always late. And you say, hey, I really need you to, you know, come on time. Verbal. Make sure it's in your policy. You get a verbal warning. Hey, they come back and they're late again. You're like, hey, my late policy is 7 minutes. You're past that 7 minutes. So I'm going to have to write you up. You write it up. They don't necessarily have to sign it if they're a grumpy person. Just have a witness there to sign. They didn't want to sign it, you know. And then if they're late again, you're like, hey, you're late. You know what I mean? You've had a verbal. You've had your first warning. Here's your second warning. Third one is it's a termination. And if you really document it like that, I have yet in 16 years in 5 different states I've worked in, have an unemployment say, yes, you discriminated against that person. Like, it's when you don't have the verbal, you don't have it dated saying, I coached them on how to whatever, on doing this task, or I told them and I physically showed them. You can even put in things like an action plan. Have an action plan like, we discussed this. These 3 things. Do you understand what I'm saying? I showed you this. They can sign it or not. Like I said, have a witness. And so I think right now with the firing, like, you know, there's different layoffs with COVID, but a lot of my clients, they've had to let some people go, or they let themselves go. And they're like, well, how do I document properly so I don't get sued? Like, that's not what I'm dealing with right now. So always think that is okay. If you do all of those steps I just told you about, SOPs, clearly communicating it, having it documented, and it could be on a piece of paper like, I told you this, I trained you on this, and have it signed, you're not going to get sued. I mean, I guess there's a 0.0001 chance that you'll lose have to pay unemployment on that, but just wanted to throw that in there as well. So here's this. Let me get this off the screen. So I already kind of talked about that, like where do you want to be in your business? Do you recognize any financial trends? And that could be with COVID. You're like, this day is really busy. This day is really dead. I need to close it. And then you may be doing analysis of, hey, right now in COVID, it looks like this, but my years past trend was, and I tell people to write that down too, because looking at your past trends can also be encouraging that you can get back there. You know what I mean? I think some people are so engulfed with their COVID numbers and the COVID crazy that they're stressing themselves out. And I'm like, but you started here and COVID brought you here, but COVID's not going to be here forever. So remember that initial number or the initial goal that you had. And then I always ask them, did you find some flaws in your operations? I've yet to have someone say, no, it was great. Usually people are like, Jackie, I'm glad this Zoom is recorded, or I'm glad you recorded this for me because this is a lot. And then I say, hey, if you feel that this is a lot, you don't have to do all these flaws yourself. Have a team, create a team, hire a team, or just have a strategy on we're not going to handle this right now. This is going to be later on. So, and then how are your employees really doing? So this is just really like after you completed these workbooks and you see what you need to change, coming up with a strategy to actually change it. And I think that is, like I said, what do we do? When you have all this data, you know, like most people are just like, man, this is a lot of data, but I'm a data person. And this, you know, if you don't know the numbers, you can always switch back to find what those numbers are. So I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint. So after your organizational things are here, you filled out this, you know, how is your business doing? The 3 important things you need to know. So you need to be setting some objectives like, okay, I got my action plan. What do I need to do? You know, and the objectives could be, I need to get this person trained. I need to get a new vendor. Hey, I just need to be more present with my employees and see how they're doing. Write all of those things down. And then have a strategy. You know, I'm going to start communicating with my employees more. I'm going to make sure that even for 5 minutes, I'm checking in with that employee to make sure they're trained. Or for 5 minutes, I'm going to make sure the manager I hired is making sure that person is trained. So that's another thing. People act like training or retraining has to be this long, drawn out experience. That is horrible. Sometimes you only have 5 minutes. So it's slow, it's 5 minutes. I need to make sure you know how to clean the bathroom properly. It's slow, and you know, your receptionist, you may say, hey, you're answering the calls, but can you really make sure that you state who you are? Just to be like, hello, thank you for calling Jackie's Acupuncture. How may I help you? And, you know, and then it may be when they answer the phone, they're not repeating back the customer's question or their order. If there's an order, say, hey, they did an order. Hey, make sure you repeat it back to them so they can verify it so we don't have any flaws. Or if you're a person that you're trying to do sales, you may say, hey, did you know that we had this sale going on? Those can be 5-minute conversations that can change your productivity dramatically, which ups your customer service is king. So it doesn't have to be a long, drawn out experience. And I do collaboration. That could be hiring a team member or a business analyst or a digital graphics person, but it also could just be having some cohesion on your existing team or management team. You may have an action plan of just scheduling, like having a better scheduling of you being present. You could have a better scheduling of making sure people are overlapped so you can do these trainings. And really what I want to focus on here is really, are you acting? Like, not like being an actor pretending that you actually care and doing something, but actually acting on those steps. You need to be like, okay, at the end of the week, did I actually do what I said I was going to do? Or did that manager actually train that person? And make sure you're checking in on all of your implementation. So I can go back, but I think you guys can see that. But just make sure you're acting, checking in, and then implementing and doing it in repeat. This is not a singular thing that you're like, I analyzed my business and it's doing gravy and I'm good. I mean, I have a few employees now. I think I'm about 3, about to take on a 4th one. And I'm at that point of like, I do it like every month. And I ask them, hey, did I equip you to succeed? They usually laugh. They're like, are you reading your ebook to us? And I'm like, no, I really want to know. I really want to know. You know, I want to, and then sometimes they're just like, yeah, the tech was down, or this software really isn't working. I know that you're paying this because it's a good price. So when you're implementing, when you're checking in, you're doing this on repeat, maybe on a monthly basis. Even if it's in your mind, you may not need to write it down each time. But you need to be open and receptive to the feedback you get to. And I think people get really hurtful because they're just like, oh, well, I tried so hard. And then I asked them, and I'm like, well, do you want them not to tell you? And then be telling another employee, girl, she does not know how to do this. Or, oh, we don't have enough cleaner. Or, hey, this software is broken. Or, hey, all of our chairs are broken over here. Like, you don't want them talking and getting frustrated with themselves. So if you ask, you really are opening yourself up to be vulnerable, to get a real response. And I've gotten some that I was like, oh, dagger to the heart when I was a manager. And even as an entrepreneur and owner of some brands, I had to take the feedback and improve. So do you guys have any questions? Or Lindsay, do you have any things that you think that the community would want to hear that applies directly to their business? I think I covered a lot. I felt like I was like in education mode, but I really do enjoy this kinds of things. Like I said, I've worked in so many backgrounds, and these are things that I don't feel owners really look at, or management team, because sometimes the owner will hire me and I'm just talking to the manager. So they're like, yeah, we don't have any of that, or I have no idea where to get that. And then I'm like, cool, but what are you proficient in? Or like, what is that person proficient in? So I can help people fill in the gaps. But in COVID, I have noticed, and I know this may seem alarming to people, but I've noticed that a lot of these things I discussed today is why some people are in the financial position they are now. So the COVID crazy didn't necessarily do this to their business. They were already on that trajectory, maybe down or up, and COVID just kind of made it bigger and larger than life. It really showed that people weren't trained. It really showed that they had bad vendors. It really showed things that were already existing. But when we have that data, we can do something about it.
Yeah, I think, let's see, one of the things I was going to point out is a lot of times it just seems like maybe the owner doesn't have the big picture of what's happening.
People don't communicate
with their staff. Communication is always the issue, right? And so I know for me, as putting my business owner hat on, you know, there may have been issues, but the employees they were scared of me for whatever reason. I feel like I'm pretty approachable, but they're like, oh, we don't want to talk to her about this complaint that we have or whatever it might be. And so, you know, they would be talking amongst each other about challenges or concerns that they had, but not going to me where I can actually do something about it. Sometimes it would end up, you know, through the grapevine getting to me or to the manager, and then we're able to address it. So I just think, you know, finding those ways to really connect with your employees in a non-threatening way, where you can just say, hey, you know, how could we make this a better environment for you? Or, you know, what are some challenges? I won't get offended. Just tell me, you know, how you're feeling. In a lot of, you know, like Jackie, you're great at that, coming into a business and being able to be that outside person that can kind of help with some of that. And let's see, there was something else I was going to say, and I lost my train of thought rambling on. But if I think of it,
no, but I want to talk about some tips for that, because what I do, I guess I'm just very like, what's going on? Like, that's me. I have the ability that people are just like, I just want to tell you things I normally wouldn't tell people. But if you're not that person, if you feel people are bitter and disgruntled, there's somebody on your team, not just say, that gets the grapevine. So find your grapevine employee. Maybe your gossiping employee. We all have one. I know that sounds mean, but that person, they're going to sing like a canary, and use your judgment on, is it exploded into an exaggeration? And then you have to use, you know, discernment to see, okay, this is really legit. Like, I kind of seen it. I could see that happening. And so it may not be people coming to you. I have people that have investors, and investors are like, I went in and everything was trash. So something's happened. Something happened. The management's bad. And I'm like, well, let's see. Let's talk to the owner. And the owner's just like, we're understaffed. Like, we're understaffed during COVID. Like, I can't hire anybody. So the investor wants this whatever in this projection, but it can't happen unless I diversify or we do something. And then we can go for that. But disgruntled employees on the grapevine, I'm not saying have a gossiping, toxic cancer in your staff. That's not what I'm saying. But usually those grapevine messages have a level of truth in them. You know, so you may just have to have the gossiping employee sing like a canary. And then when you hear the complaint, just implement an SOP or a training to do it. You may not even announce it like that. That's what I'm doing. So if they say, oh, so-and-so isn't cleaning, oh, she's always being lazy. I would, and whatever the task is, she doesn't clean the bathroom and she doesn't like to work the register. I'm just throwing that out there. Then I would be like, when the day that you're working, be like, hey, I'm going to cover this station. Can you go clean the bathroom? And then you'll really see, is that true? They may be like, yeah. Or they may be like, oh God. And then you kind of know there's a level of truth to that. If you go to the cash register and they're confused, then you know there's a level of truth. If they charge up there and take control, then you're like, man, that's what there's a good thing with that. So there's ways of finding out if it's true without saying, hey, I heard through the grapevine that they said, she said, and he said. You can test it out with trial and error. I'm going to cover this station. Can you go do this? Or, hey, I'm going to say, Dylan, you cover Jackie's station. And he's all like, oh, me. You go cover Jackie's station and Jackie's going to go do this. Then so if people say there's disgruntled employees that aren't communicating well, you can create scenarios so you can observe the outcome. Or you could turn around to a manager and say, hey, can you go ask so-and-so to do this? And then so there's ways to observe it to see what's true and what's false. And then if you see that it's true, you can implement some SOPs and operations and training behind the scenes with people actually not knowing what you're doing. I do that stuff all the time.
Well, and a ton of checklists and, because sometimes it's just better to have, that map in front of you of exactly what you need to call. I make my own list for myself every day. Like I have to accomplish all of this. And, there's something to be said for like putting a line through it. But it does seem to help, and it allows employees to take some responsibility because they initial off when they do things. And if there's one employee that's initialed everything and there are two employees working, then you kind of see the patterns and whatnot. And then also just as far as managing labor, looking at who works most efficiently together, pairing the right people together. And then I've also found, I was cringing because we got a new management software, and I was just like, oh my God, this is so expensive. This isn't going to be worth it. Why are we doing this? Well, ultimately, I just had to like suck it up and just keep telling myself this is going to be worth it in the end, because now I'm able to do all my forecasting for the next week. And so I can plan the schedule and it'll say, okay, you're at 32% labor. Okay, well, I want to get down to 30. And so, you can tweak things around. And so I'm really able to manage labor now, implementing an inventory program. I can, know exactly what my cost is on something and what it needs to be. So, I guess it was worth the money. I mean, it really is,
But my thing is the only way you knew that is because you saw something lacking and you have to fill the void.
Yeah.
And some people were just like, I'm drowning. There's no way I'm going to be able to do analysis on my business. I'm drowning. Or I'm a new entrepreneur and this just seems like a lot during COVID. Like this is a lot. And my thing is that's when you get help. And that may not be a full-time manager. That could be someone that's a consultant. That could be someone like me. That could be you doing an online class like this so you can fill in the gaps. It could be you messaging someone in your industry and be like, hey, I'm just dealing with this and can you help me? What are you doing? You'd be surprised how many business owners right now that are willing to tell their strategies, especially if they're in another state, they don't care. They want to talk to someone. They want to. I'm on LinkedIn all the time and I find it just kind of comical when people are like, hey, you do that. Can you help me? And I'm like, actually, I can.
That's a great segue into one of the sessions that we're going to have. I guess it'll be week after next is the love your neighbor. And
I was going to bring it up and you did.
Yeah.
Right.
How you can collaborate. I mean, we've done a lot of things with neighboring businesses and the city created a recovery task force that meets every Monday. And, just that, again, it all comes down to that communication piece and, oh, I have this problem and you're voicing that problem and another person says, oh, well, I can help you with that problem. Oh, great. Okay. And so I think that'll be a good session as well, just to kind of sum up everything that you've been talking about over these few weeks. And, just how, because right now it's really we've got to stick together and figure out ways to keep plowing forward through all this insanity. And you make a good point that we need to keep reminding ourselves that, we were here, now we're here because of this. And that's one thing that I have to say, having those recovery task force meetings is so great, because as a business owner, you hear other business owners saying, well, I had a great weekend. And I'm like, yeah, I had a great weekend today too. Okay, so there were people in town. Or the parking company saying, well, we had 9 rotations of vehicles throughout the day. So that was a really great weekend. And so you can say, wait a minute, I had a horrible weekend, but we had a ton of people in town. What did I do wrong? Or so it's good to kind of be able to bounce off business owners and say, okay, everyone for the most part is kind of running at 65%. So I'm not super off on this. So the more we can talk to each other, and just be informed and help one another, it's been really nice to have those resources. So anyway, I know we're hitting 6:30. So Jackie, I'll turn it back over to you to close, but,
I'm just closing. Hi, bye. No,
same time, same place.
Yeah. And I mean, every week you guys be here 5:30 to 6:30, unless it's a Christmas or holiday, and we'll announce. But invite your friends, other business owners. There really is something here for everyone. So I just want to thank CCEDC for putting on this great program for people on resources, because I'm telling you, people are paying thousands of dollars all through the web for things that you guys are getting for free. So, but if you need additional resources, I'm Jackie Johnson. You can find me at info@Wildling Dreams, WILDLING, dreams.com. You can find me there. And then you can always reach out to Lindsay if you need another way to connect to me. But I'm pretty accessible all through the web. On Wildling Dreams Consulting on Instagram, LinkedIn, and on Facebook. So feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions, especially if you're on here. I want to make sure I'm putting this tailored to you guys. So hopefully see you next week at 5:30.
Yay. And I did want to just mention also, so the CCDC partnered with Clear Creek County on a COVID business accreditation program. So this is curriculum that counts towards that program. We've been building it out. So if you go to clearcreekedc.org, click on COVID accreditation on the top menu bar, there is a ton of curriculum in there that has been identified by either us or the county. Our programs are in there. You can click on Jackie's previous recorded sessions and rewatch them. And so we are not quite finished building it out. Each badge that you can collect, there's 5 categories. You'll click on that request badge link and fill out a form, send it in, and you'll get your sticker or your window decal for your business. So just hold tight on that. The badge request form isn't live yet, but all the curriculum is there. So feel free to dig through it. There's some TED Talks that are in there, a lot of Google not Google Classroom, but Google Garage, I think it's called. That has a lot of different classes that have been identified as well. Everything that we put in there is going to be free. We're not putting anything in there that you have to pay for. So it's a great resource just for, anything kind of COVID related, for safety, financial accountability, which this course counts towards, marketing, de-escalation, and I'm missing one, or was that 5? I think I'm missing one. Self-care.
Self-care.
Most important.
I know. It's the least, it's furthest from our mind, but the most important.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there to everyone. We hope you participate in the program. You can put the window decals in your business, and it's just a great way to show that you're educated and doing what you need to do to get through all this. So.
All right.
Love
Well,
it.
you guys have a good night. Like I said,
Thank you.
I put a lot at you like a college class, but I'm glad.
That's good. That's great. Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
5:30. All right. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.